Okay, I think we're live right now. Okay, hello everyone. This is the PUP podcast that a group of us are hosting today. The main aim of today is we are spreading awareness for the PUP, which is the Parallel Universe Funding Project, based for the rebandment sort of Eyes One. For anyone who didn't know. What we are here today is we're here today to discuss the main uh, sort of issues that we are sort of surrounding the PEP project, and basically anything. Basically discussing the potential issues around the project and potential implications of the project. So, for anyone who doesn't know, PEP was established after the Eyes One final concert, Won the Story. It's focused on rebanding together the group Eyes One, and as of currently, there has been 3.2237 billion won, which has been invested into the fund, and that is basically it's a huge number for anyone who didn't know. So that's about just under $3 million. So what we're going to do today is I am going to be your moderator. I'm Chihan, and I have been a stan for Eyes One since the Fiesta era. So I'm going to let everyone else introduce themselves. But yeah, so we'll start with Blaze, and we're going to introduce ourselves one by one, and then after that, we'll start the podcast itself.
So, hello everyone. I am Blaze, currently living in Croatia, 21 years old. I'm a college student, currently first year studying Croatian language studies. I've been a stan of ISO one since even Produce 48. So, since Produce 48 basically started airing, I've been following the show and then later the group and nowadays the project. So, yeah, that's basically a short, sweet, and simple introduction for myself.
So everybody, my ID is Heju. I've been a stan kind of like Chihoon since Fiesta, but I didn't really kind of get like fully invested until more recently. But anyways, that's beside the point. Uh yeah, that's just me and Lesha. I'm just a simple fan.
Hello, everybody. This is Eyes on Me, or Matt, and I have been a stan since Produce 48 and a very heavy OT12 supporter, and happy to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Jet. I've been standing since Produce 48. And yeah, I'm a Yuri stan, but love them all, so yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Klopp. I've been an Eyes One fan since Produce 48, Sakura stan, but of course OT12 in heart. So yeah, it's been a lovely journey so far.
Hello, I am Minimon. You can also call me Monty. I would say I've been a stan since probably December time, probably when Panorama came out. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, we follow them. And then, to be honest, I only found out that they were disbanding around about February time when a friend told me. So that was interesting. So that's pretty much me.
Okay, so just to get to know everyone a bit more. So, what sort of things attracted you towards the girls themselves? So, what sort of things, um, drew you towards the girls, and what made you actually become an Eyes One stan?
So for me, really, I've always wanted to watch a sort of an idol show because ever since I've been a K-pop fan, I haven't really watched any sort of idol shows. I've only really watched sort of the likes of sort of variety shows of things like Running Man, for example, and so I was just curious to see sort of how idol shows work, and that's basically where I started. But then again, I just continued following the show and then later on the group because I just thought it was an interesting thing and was really excited to see where the group would end up considering at the time, we had IOI from the first season, Vona one from the second one, and that was a lot of that was kind of interesting to me, and yeah, that's basically how I got into them.
I think for me, it was seeing their like very natural chemistry together and how close they actually were on and off camera. That kept me to be like a really heavy stan of them.
No, I think I agree with Matt. It's kind of like that too. I kind of got introduced from a friend, and then I didn't really like actually like look a lot into it until like more, I guess later on. I guess as I kind of listened more to like different like songs and whatnot, and kind of just got like naturally more into it. And I guess I just want to like give a disclaimer. We're just, I guess, in a way, just friends talking about, I guess, like she said, raising awareness for the project. We may be there's some things we might not be 100% on as well because we don't know the entire workings, like many of, I guess, everybody. So if we're wrong, like please feel free to correct any of us. Just that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just enjoying the like music, like nice change from all the heavy girl crush that we get nowadays, and then just falling in love with their chemistry and stuff. Yeah.
Seth? Okay, go on, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I feel like for me it was, as Matt said, the chemistry between the members, because I actually was very surprised when I found out that Produce 48 was gonna have both Korean and the Japanese members. I was really curious to see how that will all pan out when the final group debuts. So seeing their bond and like their, I guess, friendship grow to this level that it was even before this band and even now, that was really what kept me going and what kept me in as a WIZ ONE, I guess.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of interesting because I mean, I'll say I've known about probably IS One since probably like June last year, but I wasn't really that into. I think I first heard about him from KCON was about when they had their performance there, but I wasn't really that into them. And sort of Panorama came about, obviously in December time, and I think I recommended him on YouTube, and I first listened to that, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. It was just amazing, and like I think that's the song that really got me hooked. And then sort of January came, and I was like, actually, I'm going to start listening to more of their music, and it just sort of just grew on me over time. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I can't remember I can't remember what it was, but then I can't remember if a friend. I think a friend came up to me and said, or a friend said to me like, oh, you do know they're like their contract ends in like a month or so, and I was like, wait, what? Really? So yeah, so for me it was just Panorama really that sort of really caught me onto them, and then sort of grew onto their music through then.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think it was a pretty widespread sort of thing. Wait, there's a spanning. That's for anyone who didn't actually watch Produce 48 and knew what was happening. I think it was a pretty big shock for everyone involved. I know I was pretty shocked when I found out. But yeah, so we're actually going to move on to the main chunk of actually talking about it today. So the first thing we're talking about today is we're actually going to talk about all the the bad stuff first. We'll get that out of the way. We're going to talk about the actual negative press surrounding the project. So naturally, as any project, and I don't know if anyone has seen, there's actually quite a lot of I mean, hate is a bit hard to say, but it seems to be a lot of I mean, you can't blame some people. It seems to be a lot of sort of delusional thinking. People thinking that people are deluded. There's a lot of WIZ ones are crazy, and all that sort of stuff. So we can sort of have talk about why do you think for starters people are actually so negative towards the project, especially if you're not WIZ ONE, you look at it and you go okay, there's it's quite so you got this random group of people who obviously you see that their group's contract is ending 2.5 years. It's ended. Why can't these people accept that their group's ended? Why are they now crowdfunding to try and restart the group? and when it's obvious, their contracts ended, no other contract has been restarted like this before. Why are the guys doing this basically? So we can have a little talk around that. Why do you think that's the case for a lot of people?
Well,
Well, I'm pretty sure that most people don't actually hate IZ ONE, or like I'm sure there's always haters, but nowadays on Twitter and stuff, like people just need to find something to talk about or hate on because they feel like they get some sort of sense of like pleasure from that. So whenever I like log into Twitter, on the very rare occasion that I do, and I see all this hate pushed towards the project, I just honestly think that people just don't have anything better to do with their time. And right now, that is like the biggest thing going on regarding IZ ONE, and so then they just jump on the hate train and like continue the flow from there.
Well, I know that there were some projects related to One when they were about to disband, and then also X1 when the whole rigging scandal came about. But, well, a lot of fans, not fans, a lot of people from social media that I saw are actually talking badly about the Parallel Universe project because these other projects for 101 and X1, they of course didn't really come to fruition, and I just think that's sort of the sour feelings some people may have towards IZ*ONE, because IZ*ONE actually persisted through, as we call it in the fandom, the dark period or the black period, when the whole rigging scandal again came about. So I would say a decent chunk of people are actually coming from that angle, but then also as well because, well, it's the produced series again. It's a limited time, so people would naturally expect for the group to disband after the 2.5 years and just done deal like every other. But again, us as fans don't necessarily think that's the case now. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I guess we can discuss that further, but I guess that those are my observations initially.
I think with like different fandoms, and especially that there's a lot of like competition between them that like often leads to some people, like big accounts on like Twitter, let's say, might not like this group and voice an opinion on it, and then you get a whole bunch of people going, oh, that's the view of this group, and then they jump behind it, and I think that just tends to spiral a little bit.
No, I think Jad has I actually think Jad has a pretty good point in terms of like if you're kind of just if you don't know the group well enough and you kind of just like hearsay things on like social media and that's like all you know and what you believe, I think it naturally builds up a I don't know how to phrase it, but like just builds up like a natural like I guess assumption on like what the group is, why people are doing this, and it kind of just spreads like wildfire considering how like Twitter, I guess, is the primary platform being like a lot of like discussions are going on there. So it's just I think people not like doing a lot of like research or like trying to actually understand what the info there is, like what's provided and like what we're actually or like what the people behind the organization is actually trying to do, just naturally gravitates to whatever they hear first and it goes from there and it doesn't end well.
I mean, we're kind of seeing this quite a lot now, aren't we? So we're seeing a general sort of herd trend towards like herd sort of news as such. So we see some person, says, "Oh, look at them! They're forming this kind of I don't know. They're doing something crazy. Why are they doing this, etc." Right? So what about this? Like, why do you think this sort of project stands out more than I don't know, like Blaze mentioned before? What this sort of project sort of stands out more than other projects from before? We had the IOI project, we had the X1, like one X. Oh, is it X1 or one X project? It's one of those two. But
X1,
we had
X1.
yeah, X1 project. Yeah, so we had that. We had the IOI project. So what about this project actually stands out in comparison to say the other two projects? Why does this seem to be more popular or seem to have more gravity, like pull as such? Do you reckon? Because I mean, IOI was a huge group, right? So why didn't that succeed compared to, say, this one, for example, do you reckon?
I think for me, it's probably the way it was handled, I guess, in a way, because I feel that disbandment wasn't handled as well as probably the previous ones. So there was a load of uproar in regards, obviously, to fandom as to how they were treated. Obviously, it was ended way too soon, and then the disbandment was announced, but just 3 days before the concert. And then I think I remember there was a few statements released in regards to I think from DC in regards to being treated unfairly and whatnot. And it's probably that I think what started it. The fact that there was these rumors of a contract extension, and all of a sudden 3 days before the concert, this gets pulled out, and then it gets announced, and then after that, there's been no more sort of, should we say, live activities. It's all just been pre-recorded stuff. So for me, I think it's the fact that the disbandment has been poorly handled, really, and it's probably what's caused a lot of publicity about it for me. So
Adding on, I think the lack of transparency behind how it was handled, like we don't get told. I mean, I feel like a lot of times we don't get told like what's actually going on because of like business reasons. Be that so, it's like we just kind of got like blindsided over and over, and then we're like, here, and they're like, here you go, bye, and it's like, well, that's that, and they kind of expect us to be like, take that, and like, I guess, just go with it.
Yeah, if I could add to that though, like I think one of the things that sets us apart a lot is the fact that like we have a really strong fandom. Like IZ ONE's fandom is really, really strong. And especially since their fandom is strong and there was also like the list of problems that were happening, for example, like the way the disbandment was handled and only pre-recorded things. I think that's what drove like the people that support IZ ONE. That's what drove them to want to like create the project in the first place, and also like it promoted them, I guess you could say, to get to where they are now, especially since IZ ONE is such a big group.
Yeah, and a big reason why this project is doing so well, or better than expected, really, is I think mainly because of KWiz's right now. Because as soon as the news broke out, they got their stuff together, and they even managed to hire lawyers, or they were lawyers themselves, which is another amazing thing. And they got to put together this project in such a short amount of time, so they could really feed off the sort of anger, or the whole negative hype around the whole disbandment, and try and reestablish them as a group through funding, which was really good.
So I mean, I see on one of the comments here it says there was the blackout and the promotion time was wasted, of course. So the blackout was what I think it was 3 months. It actually was one after it, the blackout. So I've heard it was 3 months. And I know from what I've heard from a lot of people, it was quite a tough time for a lot of people. I know that probably would have given a lot more motivation for WIZ ONEs, to stay strong, even though after say for them, after 3 months, they wait 3 months, and then at the end, we still managed to get the Fiesta come back. So is there potentially something about that maybe if everyone held on here, that afterwards we still get the same sort of result, that a miracle can happen twice? I mean, it's something that could be, we've done it once. Can we do it again? Is that sort of the sort of atmosphere around here, to capitalize on the anger that's sort of been given out by CJ as such?
That's what I actually wanted to quickly talk about, because one of the reasons I feel like this project actually gained so much traction is because we survived, I guess, the first blackout. Because during the first blackout, when the whole scandal broke out, of course, there were many people who were speculating that ISO 1 would disband right there and then, and that we would never get the Fiesta comeback or anything after that. And because the fandom actually stayed strong throughout the entire blackout, I guess you could call it, and we were doing the hashtag events every day. We were showing support. We were still doing the birthday events in Korea and Japan, like the fan sites were doing those. Like it really showed that the fandom was right there besides them, and that we were not planning on leaving anytime soon. So I guess maybe that bond that IZ*ONE have with their fandom, maybe that's actually what's I wouldn't say triggering, but I would say that that could be the reason why some people actually feel like this project is bigger than it might actually be, because we are actually trying and are actually very persistent to try to get back on track and actually do what we feel is right for the girls, and maybe even what the girls would want at the end.
I
Okay,
think
so
al-
go on. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I think also with the blackout, and then we saw like all the album sales for Bloom Eyes. I think WIZ ONE kind of realized how much like buying power they actually have, like with those, like with Uno Diary coming next, and then One Reeler. I think we realized that like there is quite a few of us, and we are willing to spend money for these girls. And I think the kind of what's like pushing us along, that we know we can do it. Like I'm sure there were lots of people who said like we wouldn't be able to like get sales like that, and then we did. So I think that kind of proved to us, especially as well as to other fandoms, that we could actually do it.
Okay, so I think there seems to be, I mean, generally from, so I guess from what we can hear is generally, I think the general consensus is that there is, I mean, WIZ ones have a lot of power and, well, I mean, power as such. I mean, we all know how many albums WIZ one could buy. We pretty much were on the top of the sales charts for 2020 in terms of girl group album sales. So we do know that us as a group have a lot of buying power. So I think from that, well, everyone knows that with using that, we could probably actually leverage the companies a bit better than potentially other groups that might not have so much like leverage power in terms of buying power. So we're probably going to move on a bit, but we're going to have a discussion about potential misconceptions people might have on the project. So what do you think might be sort of misinformation like given us like to people? So if someone is an outsider who doesn't know who is like how IZ ONE work, what the PEP is, what sort of misconceptions you might have about the project, could what sort of things do you think they might see the project as, why do you think that's the case as well?
The first misconception that I saw quite often actually on Twitter was when people began to say that the project was actually a means of forcing the members to do something they may not want to do, which I found interesting because, again, the Parallel Universe project, I mean, truth be told, it did begin as really an outrage towards the company and the way the whole situation, the whole disbandment situation was handled. Because again, we had the final concert. Well, it wasn't even promoted as a final concert. I mean, all the marketing material sort of indicated that we would continue the story rather than end it. So the first thing that again I saw was people saying that the project was there to do something that even the girls may not want, which was very quickly debunked actually, because again, from what I saw from the again the staff team that is working on the project, is, well, even if we don't succeed necessarily in creating IZ ONE again, or again re-debuting them, or however you want to say it. All the money, all the power, as you said, is gonna show those girls that there are still people who care, that there is still career paths that can be taken, that it's not all lost, because again, disbandment just means an end. But of course, for us, WIZ ONE, it doesn't. It just means, if anything, a new beginning.
And of course, if you actually are a WIZ ONE and paid attention or watched the concert to any lengths, the ending ments on day 2, you could really tell that like the chemistry that they had was real, and like everything that they were saying was sort of like, not I won't say like was statements as facts, but like you could tell that they were hinting to like the fact that they still wanted to be together, and like they felt that their time was too short, so on and so forth. So having this project as like an out for them, and to show that the fans still like have their backs no matter what, even after disbandment, is good in letting the girls know that, you know, the fans will be there no matter what, and they're providing this sort of option for them to choose and still stay together as 12 members.
I mean, I think this kind of project, it's there. It's been labeled. I'm not sure it's been labeled well enough. As in, like, it's not been like publicized well enough, but it's there to sort of give a choice to the girls on it. It's there to give a choice to the girls whether they want to take this on, whether they don't. But is there sort of any potential that you might think that people might think with this project, there's that sort of added pressure? Say, no, just as a a theory. Say, like, not it actually is true, but say if one of the girls potentially didn't want to stay in the group, they had their own ambitions. What would would this sort of project not put pressure on them potentially to have to stay together? I don't know if that sort of is a thing. But like, do you reckon that would be a big part? I mean, we this is just an assumption, of course. We don't actually know whether they want to stay together or not. We don't know for a fact, but I mean, it looks like the way that they want to stay together, right? But say if they didn't, do you reckon that gives a lot of pressure on however many girls it is who might not want to be part of the group anymore? Do you think that might pressure them into being staying as IZ ONE? Because if you have a big fandom behind you, you have all this sorted out, and then being that member who doesn't want to stay together, do you reckon they might be pressured into doing it, or what do you reckon the implications are of that?
Probably potentially. I guess because they're quite a tight knit group, so they all, because they've been together so long, they know the ins and outs of each other. So I guess if, considering all the theories as well, with some of the members potentially joining different groups, that could potentially have an effect on it, because obviously they may have been potentially advertised to by their agencies that this is what they could potentially do. So if they've been given the opportunity, then because you've got like other members which haven't got as much haven't been advertised as much in regards to what they can do. So I would say yes, it probably would definitely put a bit of pressure on them. Anyone else got any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that it might add a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, because like up to this point, no members really openly said anything about the project, like directly. So they kind of still have a little bit of a safety barrier if they wanted to like go in the way of the project or go their own separate way. They still have like a little bit of room for different options, because really nobody said anything, right? So they can still do what they want.
I don't think they. Oh, sorry, Klopp. But I'm not sure if they should, or like, I don't think it's a good idea for them to even say anything, because
Yeah, no, definitely not.
the amount of fuel that could like light up is the amount of just drama it would stir up is just it would just cause damage, I think, all
Yeah.
around. So I don't think one they should say anything. But in terms of like how much pressure they will have, I think it's more so I think they would have pressures on themselves even if they don't like talk like they would talk to each other about it, I think as a group, but like I don't think they would pressure each other because I think they've been, I guess, together enough to be like understand like if they don't want to do it, then it's reasonable for everyone to like for like I guess specific member or members to be like go off and do their own thing. But I think a more so at that point would be like I think like she said at the beginning would be like how much pressure are they going to put on themselves because this is such a big thing now. This has got so much traction, got so much media attention. It's like, what do they do? Even if they don't want to, if you're caught between like a rock and a hard place, it's like, how do you proceed? So I think the amount of pressure they would have on themselves because of this would be more than like I guess external pressure.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they would feel, I guess, some, I guess you could say, like inner pressure. They would definitely, I feel like they would definitely feel pressured in some way, because of course, if I don't know, three members decide that they actually don't want to join the reformed group, uh, like the rest, so let's say the nine members, they definitely would try to maybe outdo themselves or try to show a better image or something to fulfill the place of those three members who are missing. But I feel like they would also be, I wouldn't say pressured or feel pressured, but they would, I think, maybe feel bad for the fans who might have expected all 12 members to join the reformed group, or maybe they would feel pressure because of the mean comments that they would receive, or the fandom would receive. So I think that there is definitely a possibility that they would feel pressured, but I honestly don't really know if they should feel pressured, because even if some members decided that they didn't want to rejoin, fans would still um, love and appreciate those members because it's their own choice, and we as fans are very supportive, or should be supportive of whatever the members decide they want to do in the future. So I guess the pressure would mostly come from the haters or antis rather than the fans themselves.
Yeah, so right now the project is like considering all 12 members, but like as everyone is saying, if a few members aren't, or let's say maybe their companies aren't allowing this sort of project to happen, and let's say like 9 of the members were like managed to rejoin again, would you guys say that like the project succeeded or failed if not all 12 members were back together?
I would say that the project succeeded because the members who wanted to go back actually went back, and they, I guess, did fulfill their like wishes. But if those three members, let's say, didn't go back, like it, I wouldn't consider it a failure. I would just consider it maybe. I actually don't know how I would word this, but I definitely wouldn't consider this a failure. Not at all.
I mean, I think we have to go back to the basics of this. Remember, I think it goes back to a lot of like the misconception of all is that like we're not presenting this as like, oh, we're forcing them to do something they don't want. It's like another option that like I think like we said is an option for them whether they want to or not. So I think if let's say 9 out of 12 got back together, I agree. I don't think that's a failure. It's because we got them back together because they want to, and the members that wanted to go do their own thing, to do their own thing. It's not like we're gonna like just ignore the three that didn't want to come back because they didn't want to. Like we're still gonna support them the best we can as fans. So it's like it's not failure. We just presenting the option, and people who like the option are allowed to go with the option. And then we did what we could. Then, yeah.
Okay, so
I agree
I
with
think
that.
okay. Sorry, Karen. I was going to move on, but Karen, we'll have one more opinion on this.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I agree. I agree with that opinion because definitely, I mean, it's just their choice. So if they want to continue as ISO one, by all means they can and should. But if they don't want to continue and want to maybe pick a different career path, then again, it's up to their choice, and nothing we can do about it really.
Okay, so I think moving away from sort of the more negative side of it. So, yes, I know this is a very biased sort of group as such. We've picked a group of WIZ ones to talk about this, but generally, what do you reckon? Well, I mean, first of all, give your own opinions on the project, and what do you think? So the general consensus of the project is around just generally around K-pop. Do you reckon is what the consensus is surrounding this project?
I guess for myself at least, I am looking at positively at the project because again I've been following the group since debut, and literally every day I spend following the news, checking out everything, like watching some shows, whether that be variety shows or music shows or the concerts. I watched both on Iric Theatre and One the Story both days. So for myself personally, I would consider myself to be very invested in the group because they really mean a lot to me. Again, some people may think that again they are just singers and dancers, but to someone like me, they are a lot more. They are like people. So I'm looking positively at the project because I think the people who are behind it are doing what I would I guess they are doing what I would want them to be doing. So talking to the companies, trying to adjust, trying to sort of see how the fans are reacting, trying to pick out how much funding they can expect, etc. So again, I would really again like for the project to succeed, but again that's to be seen. But in general I'm having a positive outlook at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's definitely when I first saw it, when it first came, obviously raised. I think I don't remember how long ago. I think it was only a little bit afterwards, after the concert. I mean, when it first got announced, I was extremely hyped for it. I thought it's just a great idea. It's something that's I don't think if it's really ever something that's ever really been seen before. I don't know if anybody's if it has. I can't see it being getting this far. It's like for me, this is unexplored territory. This has never been seen in K-pop history at all. We could potentially see a fan made. I personally call it potentially a fan made group. So and at first, when I first heard about it, I mean, I was skeptical. I was behind it, but I was skeptical. I thought, I can't see the companies going for it, and I was going sort of like downhill. Like I had hope for it, but I didn't think it was going to succeed. This is the problem I had, and you had the interest survey come out, and I thought maybe the companies might listen, and obviously then that didn't quite work, and then I was losing hope, and obviously and then they announced about opening funding, and I thought maybe you might be able to convince them with the money. And then I've sort of been on an uphill stream since then. I thought, yeah, maybe this is something that could work. Maybe this is something that could change K-pop history. Is this something that could happen in the future with more groups? It for me, it could change K-pop history.
I'm gonna take a step back from that and say I'm cautiously optimistic. As much as I like to be, like, oh yeah, we're gonna nail this. It's I think a bit unrealistic to be like, oh yeah, this is definitely gonna work kind of thing, because for all we know, even with more money, they might still just flat out turn us down. I'm not trying to be like the biggest like Debbie Downer here, but realistically speaking, it's an uphill battle, is what I like to say. It's gonna keep like everybody to have to be like, 100% focused to be like keep up like all the good work, like no matter like social media, whatever that like pushes it forward, for it to have like a better chance of success. I agree like with both of you guys so far. Like ideally, obviously it'd be nice if like everything worked out, whatever. Very ideal situation. However, it's more so like being realistically taking a step back, looking at like the business sense, everything that the companies have done so far is that we don't know what they're thinking. We don't know what their plans are. Not everything is fully transparent for business reasons, like whatever. So it's that we just have to be vigilant and just kind of keep working at it for what we are like our likely outcome that we want to happen.
Yeah, I think we are overall we're all pretty on the optimistic side of things. I think the only thing is we just don't exactly know. Like, none of us here are in the room where the discussions are happening, and we just don't know. But we can only hope the best, really. And I think that's it. We can only hope. Like, in like the ideal world, we would have never got to this. But like the next step down from that would be like we might do it. Like, and I think the implications of that in like the entire culture of K-pop could be pretty substantial.
True, yeah. Sorry, can I go?
Yeah, I say yeah, I'm optimistic, but I'm cautious. So like, because obviously it's stuff we haven't seen before. So, we don't know the outcomes, but if it is successful, who knows what can happen? Maybe it could. If it is successful, could we see similar projects in the future?
True, yeah. I think that like what's happening right now is a lot better than it could have been. And like we're doing something that's rarely been done before. And the point that we've achieved up till now is a lot like farther than a lot of other projects have made it. Also, the resources that we have into this project are really impressive, considering like the people that we have supporting us and all the hard work that they're doing with it. I'm friends with quite a few K-pop stands of other groups, but they're not as involved in their communities or the K-pop community in general. So they don't know exactly that much about what's going on. But unfortunately, what I'm hearing from them is that they don't think the project is going to succeed. But the main reason they think that, from what they tell me, is that it's never been done before, and they think that the companies are just too like rigid and won't budge and don't really care about what the fans think. So I'm really hoping that this project does succeed because it'll make the fans like them understand that fans actually do have power and they can like talk to the companies and make stuff happen. So
All right. So I think the general I mean the point from us I think is sort of to be sort of I mean I've always said it this way is to, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right? So I think the general view on this from us is that it looks positive. I think everything that could have gone right, excluding disbandment, has pretty much gone right to this point so far. Like touch wood, right? Um, so I think we'll continue like that, and we keep hoping that it will continue to stay like this. We'll keep looking at it. So what do you reckon could happen if the project was? I mean, I know we briefly touched on this before, but determining whether something was a failure or a success. But what could happen if you reckon if the project wasn't successful? Say if it was an OT12, do you reckon we'll get like some sort of sub unit, or do you reckon if it's not OT12, if it's like OT9, or would you reckon that would not work as well, or do you reckon there will be some sort of they just won't be as big of a group, or there's always going to be some sort of change involved, right? So what do you guys reckon will happen if, say, the project was not successful in that sense, though it wasn't OT12 in terms of being successful?
I know many
Right.
people are sort of against the sort of an 80-12, but for me personally, I'm fine with the sort of a subgroup. Just because I remember seeing comments about there are still some, I think, there's still like a couple of members who still have so much to show on stage, and I feel even as a subgroup, giving them the opportunity to show what they want to their fans is would be good personally, and I still think that'd be pretty successful because I think each individual member still has a pretty big fan base on their own. So that alone, I feel, would bring in enough members to, or bring enough viewers, or enough support for them to continue as however many subgroups, however many would pull out, or not sort of continue as the full 12.
I'm sure we're gonna support like all of the people who are like go back and rejoin, but the only thing that I'm scared of is like those, let's say, for example, 3 people or 3 members don't rejoin. I'm afraid that there's naturally going to be hate, like pushed towards them, even though like it may or may not be their fault, maybe their decision and whatnot. But as there is quite a big OT12 like following for IS One, any sort of like change from that path would naturally bring around hate towards the other members, which even though I hope doesn't happen, is probably inevitable to happen.
I mean, I think with regarding that, I think the PEP like organizers say after the actual discussions, they would actually say they're not publish as such, but they would basically tell everyone how each of the companies responded, right? So if it was one of the members' choices, I reckon. Do you reckon they'll say that, or do you reckon like if it was a company's fault? I'm guessing they'll say it was the company's fault. The company were happy with it until they got to the money stage or whatever, and said no. They said they were going to publish something like that. So would you reckon them sort of dropping that kind of bomb kind of puts a bit more sort of pressure on the companies as such, or yeah, like I said again on the members. So I think, what do you guys think about it, basically?
I talked about this with a few friends a few weeks ago. E- Exactly this topic. Like, would the companies ever say that it was their fault, or would they say that maybe the member didn't want to join? Because, like, as we all know, probably in the business world, um, I actually don't think that they would say that they didn't want to put the member back into the group. I think that they would just lay the blame on the member and use the member as like a sacrificial goat, like to say it like that, because they would probably want to save some like face and wouldn't really want for them to be I guess portrayed as the bad one. That's that's more or less what I would say. But maybe, like, I would love to hope that they would actually say if the member uh, if it was actually the member. I would love to say that yeah, like, it was the member, she didn't want to join, and allow her to say a few words, just like reassure the fans that like everything will be fine, like it's her own decision, and things like that. That's more or less what I would say about this.
Or like a more neutral position to be like just straight up like announcing their debut as like a solo member or in another group. Like if they are able to like avoid the whole like, oh, we were not able to rejoin back with PUP or anything again, I think they would probably take it and they would just straight up just announce their solo or new group debut just to avoid all the controversy that could come about it, because people would just assume that oh, they're debuting again, so that probably means that discussions didn't go that well, and so then they wouldn't like put the blame on anybody, company or member.
I agree. I also don't think, no matter like doesn't matter like let's say whose decision it is, but I think there's realistically no way a company would throw their own artist under the bus to preserve image, because if they try to pull that, Yeah, they would just get flamed. Like they just get flamed to like beyond. There's no even if it was and they say that, I don't. It just doesn't reflect well on them in a professional sense. That would just be very poor to be like, oh yeah, even if it's their choice, we're gonna throw the I quote unquote blame towards a 20-something-year-old under their contract, under their care, because a bunch of adults want to preserve their company image. That is very unprofessional in a way. It's just poor sense. Is that what I would say?
I mean, I think, news coming out from this week shows that, maybe the companies aren't that professional after all. Is we've seen what's happened this week with Yenna and her little sort of scandal, sort of issue, should we say, with her CEO. Do you reckon? If you say companies won't do it, but do you reckon the bigger companies who, maybe having one artist to lose might save them face? Do you reckon they would do it, or do you reckon the smaller companies? Personally, I doubt they'd do that because if someone like Here One, like 8D, decided to do that for Here One, well, then they're busted, aren't they? That's their only member done. So yeah. So do you reckon the bigger companies might be more inclined to do it, or because like I said, it's not. We've seen from this week that not all companies are super professional, and then there's always a chance that they'd be willing to save their own skin if that meant throwing their artists under the bus, right?
I feel like maybe like Starship or something like yeah, like you said, a big company Starship might do it potentially, just because they do have other sorts of bigger groups that they can sort of rely on. But I got as like kind of an interesting point which I kind of just thought about in regards to what we've been talking about, and what makes you wonder if with the fandom, if let's say the companies did sort of throw their artists under the bus and sort of just blame them, do you think maybe, or trying to think of the best way of wording this, if let's say the company came out and said that they didn't want to continue with it, do you think there would be a lot of hate towards them? Or let's say if they came out and said that the member themselves came out and said they want to do something different, do you think they'll be more supportive towards the member because obviously they're more attached to them, or or would that, and then, or would like the companies say that, or if the company then came out with it, do you think there'll be hate towards them and supportive towards the member?
Well, since we are talking about sort of the lack of transparency between sort of the companies and the fans of certain groups, I would, well, in any case, whether it was the company or the member, I would much rather have the company or the member themselves somehow. Again, I'm not sure how it works in the professional world, but I would, if the Parallel Universe project staff were to release something, then I would much rather have them say this member chose they didn't want to because of X, Y, and Z. I don't know, this company didn't want to because of X, Y, and Z, rather than trying to like cover up one for another. Just for that sort of a bit of transparency, because I think that if either the artist or the company were to be honest about it and just say how it was, I think that would bring them a lot more credibility in the future. Um, yeah, so that's what I think. And then also, yeah, so like again, we talked about sort of throwing members or well, their artists under the bus. I also think that would not be professional, and even for bigger companies, I don't think they would really try to do that, because it would show, if we take for example like SM Entertainment, a lot of their artists at some point, I can think of certain Super Junior members that came under fire for something they said towards their company, like, I don't know, 5 6 years later. So I would be sort of on the edge, because the company wouldn't want to sort of deal with the backlash, even if it were to happen later on again in, I don't know, 5-6 years. So I would think that that any company, whether big or small, would try to do it sort of professionally and as honestly as possible.
All right, so I think I think yeah, like I said, it would be extremely unprofessional for one of the companies to do something like that. But I think what will deter companies from doing something like that is if they're seen throwing their own artists under the bus, their future trainees may be less inclined to choose that group, that company as such. I mean, if you're known to throw your own trainees under the bus, right? Then I mean, who wants to come and sign a contract with you, right? So I think generally that would be seen, like I said, very unprofessional, and I don't think any of the companies should do it. But like I said, I never put anything past the companies at this point, but I highly doubt they would. So yeah, if we carry on moving on, what do you reckon the sort of implications are if this project were to succeed? So say this project succeeds, we get OT12, everything's happy and dandy, we get a comeback. What do you reckon would happen to the girls? So I mean, we've just had news that Kura's graduating. Um, Nako, I don't know, for some kind of reason, removed her sort of AKB sort of name profile sort of thing off her Twitter profile. So she might be on her way out as well. He might be Tomi might be on the way to graduating as well. So we've seen that the Japanese line are very likely to graduate. What do you reckon? Well, I mean, it's not just the Japanese line, of course, but what do you reckon will happen to all the other girls? Do you reckon there will be sort of a long contract for like WIZ ONE if they are to re-debut, or do you reckon it'll be limited because like you got Yujin and Won Young in Starship? Do you reckon Starship will be willing to let them go? And of course, at the end of the day, if this contract was to succeed, like what do you think the implications are for who will like sort of oversee the group, right? Because I don't think personally PUP have the resources to run this group, so they'll definitely have to outsource to someone, right? You got what 7-8 big music companies. So what do you reckon? What do you guys reckon will happen in terms of like the contract length and who will sort of oversee this, like sort of the music production? Because recently CJ's done all of it, right? He's got a big company, he can do all of that. So what do you reckon will happen now, being spread between each one?
I think a group with like a company that has more of their own personal members involved in the group would be the ones to take them on.
Yeah, this. Go ahead.
No, that's about it. I was gonna say something else, but I need to gather my thoughts.
Well, yeah, I, I, I feel like they probably would choose the, I guess, biggest of the companies to actually like put them under their wing and like manage them, I guess, because yeah, PUP don't really have that sort of money to pay for all the production costs, like the staff, the the studios and everything else. So they probably, and they don't really have much experience nor um the staff, the personnel who would be able to completely manage the group. So I feel like they probably would choose the most, I guess, capable company out of them all and put all the members under there. And when it comes to contracts, I honestly don't know what sort of contract they would go. Like, I'm still between like a full-on contract, but that seems like a long shot. So like another, I don't know, 2.5 year, 1 year contract. I feel like it would mostly just be, I guess, like I'm gonna say it like this, but more of like a part-time thing, if you get what I mean, because I do feel like companies sooner or later discussed plans like to like manage the members after ISO1. So I don't really think that they would ditch those plans so the member can re-debut in the same group. I feel like it would mostly just be like on the side and like more of a reunion here and there rather than a full blown like group as they were for the past 2.5 years.
I think for contract length, it would be like either the companies would give them a short contract to say like, just to please the fans, to be like, you see, like, we made pub happen for like a while, be happy, and then they take it straight back, which we can't complain after that because we made the project work, we got what we wanted to a certain extent, and that's that. But another side would be like the companies already went through this entire process of us, sort of begging and like all sorts of stuff, and they would put all their cards down and be like, all right, you know what, this is the path that this idol, like, we're putting all our resources into this member, like, this is what they will be doing for the next X amount of years in a full contract. So I think that's either to either satisfy the fans and bring them straight back, or put all your resources back into that member and move on without that member for their new debuting group.
You guys keep talking about, I guess, like choosing the biggest company and more capable, like the most resources. Yeah, I think that's fair, but like, I'm not. I don't. Would they accept that responsibility just because like it's gonna be taxing on them? I guess. I guess what I'm saying is, other than like what PUP to like, I guess provide them in terms of, I guess, whatever we have now is like, however long the contract duration will be. Let's say if it goes through whatever, however long it will be, all that resource in terms of like money for food, money for like the door, money for promotion, money for marketing, money for whatever. It's like this isn't like gonna last like let's say 2.5 years, another 2.5. This money alone that we generated is definitely no way gonna last remotely, ideally that long. So it's like, would they alone, like the biggest company that we have, would like, or whoever they have, is like, would they accept that responsibility without like additional like support, like with all the other companies have to pitch in to like do this stuff, kind of stuff. It's like there's a lot of like, I guess, logistics that also needs to be worked out afterwards. So this is a very complicated questions that we can, I guess, discuss and speculate as to the best of our ability, but we just, I guess, in a way, don't have like that kind of knowledge in terms of like how it could work. But it's definitely like a good thinking one, just because this is the actual like nitty gritty stuff that actually will have to go into like working once. Ideally, if this goes through, and it's like, okay, it went through. Now, how are we gonna do this? How's everything gonna work out? So this is gonna be a very big one, and this it's just complicated. Holy.
I'm happy to see, Jews covered the important bases such as food here. So we've got that covered at least. But no, I think we should probably start moving on. It's time. Time is of essence, I think. I think, okay, so from this, so maybe not look at Eyes One as such, but if this project worked out, what do you reckon will happen to like for future produce groups? Do you reckon if this works out, do you reckon in the future we'll have massive waves of protests, more trucks for a few weeks, and then money being thrown into a project again? Do you reckon that's sort of more so like if this works out, it'll be a precedent, of course. It'll be a precedent that's been set, right? Do you reckon other produce groups will be sort of more inclined to sort of stay together? Not like before they see produce group ends, it ends, right? It's a precedent. If it works, that we can continue going. Do you reckon this will sort of affect how other produce groups start to think? So they think, instead of going, we know this contract's 2.5 years or however long that contract period is, they'll go, actually, if we work really hard these 2 years, we get a big fan base. Do you reckon we can continue working afterwards? Because it worked with Eyes One. Could it work with us? It would be more of an incentive to work harder, right? Do you reckon that would be the case?
Well, for me, I think that there would not really be an incentive for the production companies of the shows to uh, sort of rig the show as much, because for how I see it is there is always going to be someone who's gonna try to make a profit, unfortunately, that's just how it is. We've seen it in Korea, we've seen it in China. It's not rare for things to get rigged, but in even in that sort of environment, I would really hope that if ISO one was to come together again and debut as 12, that would really sort of put a marker per se, sort of create that sense of, well, there are groups, there are fans, and there is a connection between the two. Because for some reason, I don't really think these companies see that. Again, it's mostly just for monetary value. I guess we can see that that's not that secret. It's not that not obvious, but I would really hope that the groups would stick together, get to enjoy what they like to do, to be an idol, that they would really get to enjoy that with their fans and sort of fulfill their dreams rather than being sort of an object of a system that's made to work in certain ways just to sort of get financial gain and nothing more.
I think yeah. So I think what I'm more trying to sort of steer towards is sort of what do you think do you reckon if this sort of project succeeds, do you reckon more produce groups will try and take this route in the future in terms of like, do you reckon they will be more inclined to start funding and stuff if companies say no, we don't want an extension, or do you reckon companies will be more likely to extend knowing that this could be a possibility in the future?
I think not just in produce groups as well, but like it just like in K-pop, like the implications of this are so big that like it's probably going to change the way that contracts work if it, like, depending on how well this succeeds. Like it could have very vast implications.
I was gonna add on to that. It's like maybe instead of like having like a 1 to 2 year contract, what if right off the bat they just go for a longer one to begin with? That could be a possible like influence. Because if that's the case, then they would. I think if that was the case, companies would know how to plan ahead, and that would avoid all the whole renegotiating deal, and it would like interrupt a lot of like their own plans. Because if they have that, then they could be like, oh, we dedicated this person to this group or like this whatever thing for 4 years. Then they can prep all the other people, all the trainees and whatever for like a different debut or like maybe a different time or just different things. I think if they did that, it would kind of eliminate the hassle for like just having to deal with the whole renegotiation phase and having, maybe a potential fallout and then potential like people having to crowd fund again. And then it's just a big headache if they have to do this again. So I think if anything, a longer contract starting point might just solve a bit of headache and a bit of like logistics.
Not only that, but I think that if like this project does succeed, idols of big groups and small groups and like varying ranges of popularity, they'll like know the story of what happened to IS One, right? Because this is a pretty significant thing, and they'll be able to say like, "Hey, they did it. If we're popular enough, then we can extend our contracts too." And probably it would be easier after this project succeeds. Well, hopefully, if it succeeds.
Okay, so I mean, okay, so if this project succeeds, who do you reckon will be the biggest winners and losers? So I mean, naturally, you have big winners, big losers. So I mean, you got all the parties involved, right? Who do you reckon will be the main sort of like winners as such and main losers?
I mean, other K-pop
Winners
groups
are WIZ
will be the
ones.
losers because our buying power is going to stay with IS One.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms, we all know. I mean, we all know that a lot of sort of companies are sort of not going to be very happy. Now, other groups won't be very happy. You know, if IS One stays in the business,
For the competition,
then
I mean.
yeah, we're gonna basically sort of, you know, it's a bit unfair for them. I admit, we're a big group. It's not very fair, but sort
I
of.
mean, I can't really say that. I mean, like, there's BTS and all that. So I mean,
Yeah, that's
Nah,
true.
of course.
do you think they care? I
Nah.
don't think they care, man.
No, I was like, you get the idea. It's kind of sort of more of a flippant sort of comment, but you know, it's well, I mean, do you reckon sort of like the main winners sort of will be like, or which companies do you reckon will be the main winners? I'm guessing. Well, I mean, CJ won't be very happy, of course, if it all works out and he's got a cut out from the deal, right? Um, that's sort of more of what I was aiming at, but
I
yeah. So,
see.
and
I think if I can, I think that the smaller companies are going to be the ones that are the winners because they have like guaranteed success almost, whereas the larger companies are going to be like, okay, well, they're doing something that we don't really mind, but it's not going to be as significant for them as it would be for example, 8D.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
feel.
normally, like, oh, you wanna go?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. It's like, for example, like companies like Starship with Eugene and Won Young. Like, I think they wanted to, or they probably had plans to re-debut them into another group and probably like feed off their popularity from IZ One through to the next group. But the thing that I think the companies fail to understand is that their popularity was like as a group, or like they were popular as one, where if you take them out into like a different environment or whatever, they might not be able to thrive or get the same amount of love and support in their new groups. So they had to consider that like win to loss if they want to re-debut it as another group. Whereas if they focus all on re-debuting as IZ One again, they know that the fandom for IZ One themselves is already like really strong, so they don't have to worry about like all that sort of other problems about that.
That's exactly what I was kind of thinking, but also, um, I feel like when we're talking about the winners and losers, like there's always this aspect that um, we might get some members in the group who might not want to be in the group. So, like, if maybe the company forced them, so I will say for example 8D forced Hyewon back into the group. So maybe she and maybe like she had different plans. If that's the case, of course, then Hyewon would kind of be um the loser in this case, and the company would be the winner, even though we would maybe think that Hyewon wanted to go back. So it's definitely an interesting question, but yeah, I feel like the smaller companies who might not be as, I would say, maybe capable or maybe as resourceful as the bigger ones, maybe they would be on the winning side, since they would have an already established fan base for the members they would be putting back into the group, and they would know that the member has, I would say, a secured future. And maybe, I don't know, Starship, or was the other bigger one, like Volum. I guess if they put their members back, it would maybe be like a 50-50 chance that like they could be winners or losers, depending on if the the group at the end actually makes enough money for them to consider it a success or a failure. But I guess it all really depends on how it all really depends what will happen, and what the companies slash the members want. I think that's where I would draw the line.
All right, so I think yeah, we've got generally a rough idea, so that we've got a few winners and we've got very obvious winners. Like, I mean, tier 1 and 8D will obviously be like clear winners. The smaller groups will obviously be clear winners because they will benefit most because, you know, their member as such has such big popularity in IS One. And chances are that's probably why, if they were to sort of take them out of IS One, it just would be to exploit their popularity, right? And we know probably that it's very likely that if it was Eugene and Won Young starting their own group, well, in a group started by Starship, it's very big potential for it to be, you know, Won Young and Eugene and, you know, and a few friends, especially at the start, right? Yeah, no one else will know any of the other members. You've got a, you know, big two massive girl group members who have gone into another group with basically effectively trainees, right? So we know obviously that there will be other sort of winners and losers in this group. So we hopefully, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I sort of think we kind of hit in towards the end of this podcast. I was going to say, if no one saw the chat, if we got any viewers or any people who have any questions regarding PvP, or any questions you want to ask any of us personally, if you do, just send them in now, whilst I kind of wrap up and we sort of clear up. If there are no questions, I'll probably clear up because I think a few of us have things to do as well. But yeah, is she single? Yes, I am. No, but okay. So for I think thank you for everyone for watching. I'd like to thank Pals for hosting this stream as well. Very much. Thank you very much. Think I hope we've kind of given you more of an update or sort of a insight into what people. Oh, we do have a question. Okay. How have you all thought about double group stuff? If that the company asks for to support the project, agree of it. Sorry, what's right? How
as,
your
as in like non-exclusive contracts, like how
non-exclusive contract? Okay, yeah. Well, anyone got the answer to that one?
It did sort of cross my mind. So do you mean like sort of like? Oh, sorry. Do you want to go? Or...
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so do you mean sort of like, for example, if let's say Vienna Glow was to happen and then like they were to also then go into Eyes One kind of thing? Because if that's the case, I guess that could happen, but I just feel it would be kind of unfair on the girls because their schedules would be just so jam packed that it would be detrimental to their mental health and just they barely have any time to do anything. I just feel there'd be too much pressure for them. I don't think personally. I don't think it should be something that should happen. It should be either or. Just because, it was just schedule was jam packed. Considering if, let's say, for example, if Yana did join Everglow, all the reality shows that she's also in, plus doing Eyes One, it will be very hard to fit it all in.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my personal opinion, if we had non-exclusive contracts, what you end up having is you end up having a girl who is stuck between two groups. What does she do in the sense that you've got Eyes One is such a big group, and I mean, if in the sense of maybe Yenna going to Everglow, for example, I mean, of course it's speculation, but if that was to happen, what we end up having is we end up having one girl in two groups who are effectively competing against each other, right? So what side does she choose? Does she go, oh, I should be, working hard to support my, Everglow's comeback. And then straight after that, she has to go support WIZ ONE's contract. I always want Eyes One sort of like comeback or whatever it is. So you gotta remember these two groups are competing against each other. And personally, I don't think companies will allow for that to happen anyway. Why would say you allow for a girl group who's obviously in the same sort of market as Yuha go against them. So I don't think it'd be a logical move for Yuha. But yeah, but that's my personal opinion on it. But say for like even for like a smaller group, you have Won Young and Eugene, or potentially Here One, for example. If she was to do Eyes One stuff, and then she also had to promote other group on the other side, um, people might just completely ignore the other smaller group because you've got Eyes One there, and Here One's popularity is from Eyes One, correct? So why would they go and invest like Eyes? Why would WIZ Ones invest their money in Here One's other group when she's still in Eyes One, right? It's sort of illogical to sort of stay in that sort of market with sort of two groups effectively competing against each other. Yeah. Any other people got any sort of comments on this question? Nope.
I think that's pretty good right there.
Yeah, okay. So we've got another question here. So since this is a project funding, do you think that the project would protect the interests of the artists? Anyone want to answer that, or should I go for it?
Um, I can give it a shot. Um, do I think that the project would protect the interest of the artist? I would definitely hope so, because that seems to be what the project staff and what the project is heading to, like the direction the project is heading to. But some people, I, some people I know don't agree with this, and they feel like the project will basically screw up the girls and the fans later on because they don't really have positive experiences with the DC gal and the people running the entire project. But I definitely would like to hope that they will stay on this path and that they will protect the interest of the artist. I really do hope that. If
All right.
if
So
the if the, sorry, if that answers the question.
okay. So I think okay. So what the project stands for, I think, like I said, like I stated at the start, it's a sort of a project that gives the girls the option, right? I think not. I don't think any of the PUP sort of PUP workers or PUP sort of people or such are there to sort of protect the interests of the girls in the sense that if the girls so what we saw before was that the girls seem to be happy to want to sort of sign on an extension on the contract because from what we've seen before 10th of March or whatever it was very likely that the girls were going to have an extension until someone, we don't know who exactly, pulled the plug, right? So I think that wouldn't have been done unless all the girls wanted to do that. So if the girls were to continue to want to do that, then I think the company, the PEP would allow for that to happen, right? But at the same time, I think the idea of having PEP is to actually let the girls have a chance to stay together, in a sense that's protecting their interests. They want to stay together, whereas the companies didn't give them that choice when they pulled the plug on 10th of March. So I think the idea is, I think the company is there to support all the artists. They've been very positive so far, in terms of all the girls' individual activities, etc. They've been very positive, and everyone's been sort of, I mean, everyone that I've seen in sort of WIZ ONE community that we have on Discord has been very positive towards all the girls' per sort of activities. And I think the idea is to sort of do what's best for the girls, right? That's at the end of the day what we really care about. That all the girls are sort of happy, and even if it does mean that they aren't together, as long as the girls have had their chance to express their own opinion, and that if they wanted to stay together, we give them that option to stay together as such. I think everyone would be happy with the outcome. That if girls at the end of the day, there will always be haters, but at the end of the day, if one of the girls wants to move on, then we do we allow for that. They'll sort of accommodate for that, right? So I think if there aren't any more questions, I think we'll actually have to wrap up now. So I hope that answers everyone's questions. Like I said again, thank you to everyone who's listened. Thank you to Powers who's hosted the stream. I hope the stream's sort of been this podcast has been helpful to everyone. This podcast should be recorded by Powers, I believe. So if you do want to have a listen again from the start, if you came in halfway, are they okay? I've got a couple more questions. I'll answer these super quickly myself. Are there updates about Yuri, such as the company's situation, who exactly is people from PEP getting contact with regarding to a CJE? So from what we've seen, or what I've seen at least, there aren't any stone sort of solid evidence, like sort of information about her. Sorry about the pun, but yeah. So sorry, I couldn't help it. But yeah, there's been no solid evidence about what's happening with her. We know Stone's been liquidated, but there are rumors that Wake One is the new sort of company that's been set up by CJ Entertainment. But we don't know exactly what's happening with that. There's no been official confirmation. We've not actually had any sort of direct updates about Yuri, except she had a cafe date with Cheyan. I mean, we can only assume she's enjoying herself. We can only assume she's enjoying herself in bed in Busan. That's what I'm going to assume for now. And who exactly is the people from PEP getting in contact with regarding to her? Well, they're all talking to. I'm guessing they're talking to the Wake One. If it is Wake One, they'll be talking to Wake One's CEO or whoever's in charge of managing her. Because to my knowledge, especially with Stone, with Swing Entertainment, they are separate subsidiaries of CJ Entertainment. So they basically operate under the name of CJ Entertainment, but they act separately to them. So they work in their own interest. They work to basically make money for CJ Entertainment, but at the same time they work separately to them. Of course, CJ can always override them, but to the best of my knowledge, they will probably discuss without CJ in the picture. But of course, that's always potentially we don't know what happens with that. But like I said, it's all hush hush with the companies. There's no actual confirmation of Wake One yet. But that's all we know. And are they all K-Wiz? Yes, all PUP members are K-Wiz to the best of my knowledge. All the people who are there can speak Korean. They're all from Korea and they all work in that. Okay, I think that will be the final question. We are definitely wrapping up now. So, yeah, okay. Final time. Let's try my luck again. Thank you for everyone for listening. If you joined halfway and you want to listen again, Pals will probably put this up somewhere. I'm not sure where he'll put it. Pals, if you want to say where you're going to put it, you can put it in the comment section now. And yeah, thank you for everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone else who participated in here today. So thank you, Blaze. Thank you, Heerju. Thank you, Eyes on Me. Thank you, Jat. Thank you, Klopp. Thank you, Minnie. And thank you, Pals, of course, again. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I will probably leave Pals to sort of sit out anytime. You may see us in the future. We might be doing more podcasts if this is received well. So keep an eye out for us. Pals will probably say something if that's the case. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, and I will be signing off.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Peace. Thank you, everyone. See
Thank you.
That was nice.
Fun pub.
Bye bye.